Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you from Film Fanatic headquarters. It is Sunday at 11:16. Hope everyone's doing good. It is a very nice. Haven't actually been outside yet, but it seems like it's pretty darn warm. It's been really nice weather. It's been officially spring has pretty much come, I think. So it's starting to feel that way. So yeah, I very excited about today's show. I went to Bull Moose yesterday up in Bangor, and I actually had not been to Bull Moose in a while. I was kind of going through Bull Moose withdrawal, if you want to call it that. I It's my home away from home, so it was great. It was great, and I was amazed by how much amazing shit they had there yesterday. So before I get into the main topic of today, I'd like to give a few updates with my band Quantum. I like to, use this channel to help promote my band, and I think it's helpful. And again, it's all part of the same tree. It's all that Quantum is so greatly inspired by film more than anything else. So I've kind of been in the midst of booking some things for the spring and summer and putting trying to put some things together, and we got some things coming up. We're going to be doing a triple bill show in Thomaston this summer, and then we're going to be doing our annual show, which we've done for almost since the inception of the band. We're going to be back at the Camden Amphitheater in Camden, Maine, which is one of my favorite spots for us to play. I have so many great memories of playing there. And then we're going to the big one that I'm really really excited about is we just got asked. It was a few weeks ago now, but Quantum just got asked back to play at the All Roads Festival in Belfast, which I think all around you know just the way the whole thing is organized and the way the musicians are treated, the way everyone's taken care of, the sound, people that they hire. I think it's the All Roads Festival is probably the best music festival in Maine. It's so awesome. I've been to it a few times, anyway, and I about 2 years ago we were fortunate, really fortunate, to play uh, two shows at the All Roads Festival, which was really awesome. I don't know how we ended up making that happen because typically when they hire the bands to play there, they give you like the one slot, and then they don't always have the same acts come back because there's so many bands. So they typically have different a different thing every year, a different presentation of bands. Occasionally they'll bring back certain groups, but it's pretty rare. So I was amazed that we were able to get two slots, and then it was really nice to be asked back for this year. So that's going to be coming up. So I'm very excited about that, and I'm also working on doing another show that we're putting together at Hey Sailor this summer with the Button Men, which we just played a show with them, or him, Wally, a few weeks ago. So, and then working on some other things that we'll try to get going. So yeah, I'd just like to give a quick shout out and update to that. And again, I want to thank. Been getting quite a few new subscribers to this channel, and we want to give a big thanks and welcome aboard to those folks and the loyal fans that really have played a big part in supporting this channel. You know who you are, and I love you guys. And thanks for always commenting on these videos. Super cool. And so that's just really an awesome thing. And I because couldn't do it without that kind of support. So yeah, so that brings me to today's show, which I am very very excited to talk about. This was as far as physical media movies that I wanted to get. I don't typically, last year, 2024, was just a killer year for horror films and horror films in general. There were so many great films that came out last year. It was coming out of a time, I think, where there was kind of a lull and there wasn't really a lot of great things coming out. But last year was exceptional. So many great films. And most of the time when I go to Bull Moose, I don't usually go there with a plan. I usually just go and try to me, it's about the hunt, and coming across just, all kinds of cool films. But being that last year was so good, I definitely had certain films on my mind that I really wanted to get, and I got some this year. I got Long Legs on Blu-ray, and I got Late Night with the Devil, and also In a Violent Nature on Blu-ray. These are all brand new films that came out last year, which I thought were all really awesome. I got those from Santa Claus, so that was really great. One other film that I thought was just exceptional last year was Oddity. I bought that this year. So that kind of thing doesn't happen to me too. It's not a regular thing. I typically go there with, I do have some ideas in my head, but I try to go there just blank slate, and just it's the hunt that's the most fun, and finding all kinds of shit that I either don't know about or a film I saw when I was a kid. But that being said, my most anticipated physical release for this year, 2025. Before that, I think my most anticipated release, because I had heard so many great things about it, and it wasn't going to be released in in physical media form, but then there was a lot of backlash from the fans, and that was Prey, the last Predator movie, which is just awesome and fantastic. I had been really wanting to see that film for a long time. I was very late to the game because I don't stream films, so that was a big thing for me as far as buying that, and I'm really excited. But for this year, my most anticipated film to buy this year was this bad boy right here, and that is Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. Came out Christmas, which is perfect, of last year. And I saw Nosferatu twice in the theater, which doesn't happen too often, that I will go to see a movie, literally within a few weeks of each other in the theater, because obviously it's more expensive and what have you, but it's really the experience of that immersive experience, and that goes back to why I just love going to movies. But Robert Eggers' Nosferatu was easily one of the best films of last year. I was kind of enthralled with this film, or I was enthralled with this film. I was totally captivated. And I saw it, I think, 2 days. It opened on Christmas Day originally, and then I saw it, I think, 2 days after Christmas, or maybe the day after Christmas. I saw it with some friends. And then about 3 or 4 weeks later, maybe 3 weeks later, I saw it again with another group of friends at the Colonial Theatre in Belfast. And I found myself enjoying it almost even more. So I was, kind of chomping at the bit to get this Blu-ray, and I saw that I think it was just, this was just released maybe a few weeks ago, less than a month ago. I saw a thing online about, because this movie was hugely successful. I'm a huge Robert Eggers fan. The Northman, The Lighthouse, The Witch. Just fantastic director. One of the best working directors right now, especially in the horror genre. This movie was his most successful film that he's ever made. This movie made a ton of money in the box office, which is, for me, I kind of feel like that's really, I don't know, kind of surprising. But then again, it goes back to the argument that I gave yesterday, or not debate, or not argument, but viewpoint that I gave yesterday when I was talking about on how I feel the perception is from major studios on the audience, meaning that I did a video yesterday about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre films, and in that video I was talking about franchises and how nowadays it's a regular common occurrence, that's any film that is like a quote unquote action film or horror film, if that has some kind of success, these studios will, greenlight all kinds of projects to that IP to, cash in on it. And, the franchise thing is not new, but now we're just so inundated. And I was talking about how they were just milking this thing so much, especially the biggest example that I was talking about yesterday is the Lord of the Rings films, where it's been announced that there's going to be two or three more Lord of the Rings films coming out this year or next year, and it's just kind of, just the thought of that is just exhausting. And I was commenting because a friend had posted on Facebook about, just let it go. Come on, like just move on to some new things. Like people don't want as fans of film, we don't always want the same kind of regurgitated idea. There's plenty of other things out there to create. And I was just saying, well, that because I think that this is happening so much now, I think, generally, I think it's pretty safe to say that big studios think that the audiences are, kind of dumb, kind of incompetent, and they want a level of familiarity. They, they don't really want anything that's going to rattle the cage a little bit. So a lot of these studios want to like play things safe, and they want to kind of just rehash these ideas that have been told 1,000 times and blah blah blah. And I was saying, well, I don't think that that's true. That I think that perception overall is kind of fundamentally wrong and flawed, because I feel like when you look at films like, say, The Substance, with Demi Moore, and then Nosferatu, and a slew of other films, that these films were hugely, hugely successful, and they don't really fit in that traditional way of, or that conventional way of storytelling, that Hollywood just kind of just continually dumps onto the public. And I think people want more than just the same old story over and over again. And granted, what I'm about to say maybe, I don't know, kind of slightly cancels out what I just said. But, for instance, Nosferatu, classic story, and it's, the tale of Dracula has been told many, many times. It's it's such an iconic story and character, Dracula. You have Francis Ford Coppola, who has directed, which up until this point has always been my favorite, the definitive version for me, as far as the portrayal of Dracula based on Bram Stoker's novel. You have the original, the silent film Nosferatu. You have Frank Langella's Dracula from the 80s or 79, which I think is one of the greatest ones. There's so many. There's so many Dracula films. I'm a huge fan of all of the classic Hammer films. I grew up on all of those. And Frankenstein vs. Dracula, which is one of my favorite versions of that film, of that classic monster. And that's the incredibly low, the exploitation film, which I just love to death from the 70s. And there's been so many retellings of this story, and so that's a thing. But I think what Robert Eggers did with this film and kind of his portrayal of telling the story, he did something really, really unique. And I think what he did was he combined lots of different elements. There was a lot of backlash against this film for some reason. A lot of people were, and I've probably made, this is like my fourth video on Nosferatu, which is kind of crazy. I made two videos of Nosferatu. The first one being after I first saw it, opening weekend, and then I did another video where I talked about seeing it the second time. And then, during this whole time, I kept seeing so much negativity around this film, of where people were kind of attacking the film. It was kind of beyond a bad review. It was like people were taking it to a point of where they were like, I don't know, kind of being vicious about this movie. I was like, I just didn't get it. I'm like, yeah, it was kind of confounding. I want to be in a world, and we do live in that kind of world, but I want to be in a world of where people have their own opinions. I don't want everybody to have the same opinions. That would be, I guess, a pretty boring and mundane experience, and everybody should have their opinions. But I saw when Nosferatu was out and it was making a shit ton of money, it felt like, and I think a lot of it was this kind of, this bullshit that was, manufactured, by social media to kind of like create this fake controversy, which happens all the time. But I think what happened was I found this movie was kind of polarizing, but it got to the point of like the people who did not like Nosferatu were just like, okay, what's going on here? There's something else going on, to the point of where it was like just strange. So I made a third video about Nosferatu where I just talked about all of this, all of this negative crap that's coming out about the film, and people going a few steps beyond just saying that they did not really like the film. So, and I noticed that there were people who really loved this film, like myself, and then other people who thought it was okay, and then other people who thought it wasn't very good. But then you have these other people that were, I don't know, they were hell bent on doing whatever they could possibly do through social media means to destroy this film. It was crazy. It was crazy. This kind of weird phenomenon almost. So I made a video, which again, I love that people have different opinions, but it was kind of to the point where it was absurd. So I made a video just about that, just kind of throwing out ideas and talking about it, as to like what the hell is all that about. So, and then today, this is my fourth video because now I own it on Blu-ray. So there's a lot of Nosferatu. And when I said earlier that, well, maybe what I'm saying kind of, what I'm talking about now kind of cancels that out, because it's Nosferatu, Dracula is not a new idea. It's an original IP that's been around for almost 100 years. There's been many retellings of the story. One of and then the classic Universal monster films with Bela Lugosi. I mean, it's been around for forever, since since the birth of cinema, more or less. During all of this too, I started doing these audiobooks, and one of the first one am new to the audiobook way of reading books, and I really love it, and that's what I'm doing now. But the first book that I did was Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is it's a masterpiece. It's one of my favorite books of all time. So that got me so interested in, and it was fantastic. But with Robert Eggers' version here, I think what he did brilliantly was he kind of combined, the original Nosferatu. Werner Herzog also did a really great version of this film, which I do have to say is kind of controversial that a lot of people don't want to hear it, but I do feel like that movie, and again, I think that Klaus Kinski's version is a fantastic film. I think particularly the cinematography is amazing. It was directed by Werner Herzog and stars Klaus Kinski as Nosferatu. The cinematography is amazing. The music is amazing. But I have to say, like, and I rewatched it. I saw it. I've seen it quite a few times, and I watched it a couple of years ago. I don't own it on DVD or Blu-ray, which is I do need to get an upgrade of it on Blu-ray. But I have a really good VHS copy of it. My VHS player has been dead. It's long dead. I'm not going to get a new one. But I have a really great edition of Nosferatu on VHS. And I will have to say that some moments in that film are kind of cringeworthy, where like the acting is. And I watch a lot of crap. I watch a lot of shit that people would are just so repelled by. All the exploitation movies that I love. I love trash. So take that with a grain of salt of what I'm going to say. But I think that Werner Herzog's version is. There's moments in the dialogue. There's moments with the acting, and there's certain things that happen in that film that I just feel are just like so bad. They're kind of cringeworthy, and not really bad. So bad it's good. It's kind of bad, and I'm always amazed that people. And again, but overall, I think it is an awesome film. I think it's definitely one of the best things think that Herzog's ever done, but I just think it's kind of flawed. Um, I think visually it's so powerful, and again the music for that film is so powerful that kind of almost overshadows a lot of the clunkiness of that film. But anyway, and I'm always amazed that people always praise that film all the time, but they seem to like refuse to actually look at it for the actual movie part of it. But anyway, what Robert Eggers did with this film is combined that classic, the classic silent Nosferatu film, and I think what he did, he also combined a lot, which I was really surprised by when I saw this for the first time, because initially when I went into seeing Nosferatu, I thought it was going to be, I knew it would probably be pretty weird, pretty disturbing. There's going to be some fucked up shit in it because it's a Robert Eggers film. There's going to be some weird psychosexual things in it, which we all know and love, and we all expect for a Robert Eggers film. But I thought it was going to be, a retelling of the classic story of Nosferatu, and it was going to be more of focused on the silent film, which is again a classic film. But I was really surprised that it also took heavily from Bram Stoker's Dracula from Coppola. I thought there were a lot of elements from Coppola's Dracula in this film. And I also thought it took a lot from the original novel. And then I also thought it took a lot from kind of the historical text of Vlad the Impaler, and what it was like to live in Transylvania, during the time of the noblemen during that period. So I was really surprised and really excited that this film took from a lot. He took a lot of different things from different resources. And again, my favorite up until this point has always been Coppola's, which is a fucking masterpiece in every way. But I was really excited that he took elements from that, but you know made his own thing with it. And I think the thing that the aspects of the film and the story that I thought he did so well, that was really unique, was, well, first off, Robert Eggers, he's the master of a period piece. Like, when it comes to a period piece, nobody does it fucking better than Robert Eggers, like, hands down. He completely captures that world in every, whatever that world is. The Witch, for instance, or the Northman, the Lighthouse. Whatever time period he's going to pick, he fucking nails it because he's so meticulous with every detail. It's kind of insane. I don't think there's any director out there that does that to the extent that he does. And I thought what he did with Nosferatu was just brilliant as far as like a period piece. And I think the tone of this film is very different because this feels like an old gothic fairy tale. It has that classic, kind of metaphorical value to it, which I don't think we've ever seen before. As far as this classic story told, I don't think we've ever seen the story told that way. And the other aspect of this film is that this movie is so there's so much a sense of a sense throughout this entire film, from the beginning to the very end, of just complete and utter, like, impending doom and despair. And and I think it's this film is very intense because it's almost unrelenting with its sense of doom, that and death, and the themes that this film was about throughout the entire movie. But it's so beautifully shot, and the cinematography is just breathtaking. The music, everything. And the other thing that I think it really does differently with this film is it really ties in kind of the psychology, or psychosexual elements of, death. There's a lot of death. There's a lot of sex in this movie. It 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 really ties into the psychology of that, obsession, affliction. It really takes a deep dive in kind of that psychological world, which again, I don't, we've never really seen that part of it, of the story, explored that much. So those elements are really, really different. And the cast is Julie Rose Depp is just incredible. Nicholas Hoult, William Dafoe, Sarsgaard. I mean, just incredible. And this movie has become my favorite version of Dracula. Dracula, when it comes to genre films, I'm more of a werewolf guy. I really, really love werewolf films the most. There's not as many, obviously, compared to the vampire genre or even Dracula films. That being said, I have been seeing that Robert Eggers' next film is going to be a werewolf film, which I am beyond excited about. So we'll see. And I think it's coming out like this year already. Because usually it's like 3 years or so between each of his films. But because of how I described this movie, like why I think it's different and why it's. And the other thing is that this film, it's kind of unrelenting with its darkness and sense of doom. It's got some really fucked up sexual things in it. There's, and I think the movie also tackles taboos that are kind of like not really wanting to, be explored in horror films. Where you have uh, children getting eaten, children being killed. The death of children. That's something that is a taboo that we don't want to see on the big screen. That is explored. We have a little bit of necrophilia, which is always fun, and some seriously fucked up psychosexual sex. All the things we love and all the things we want to see in a film. And and that's all thanks to the demented mind of Robert Eggers. So, which all of those things we've never seen in a Dracula film. So, and with all those things being said, my number one film for as far as representation of Dracula is Nosferatu. I I'm more like I said, is when it comes to monster movies, I'm all about the werewolf films. Those are my favorite. But I am a huge Dracula fan, huge. More so than vampire movies, even though I love those to death too. One of my favorite characters of all time. And for me, this is the definitive version of this beloved character. And this transfer of Nosferatu on Blu-ray is extraordinary. The sight and sound is just amazing. I have to say, I watched this. I watched this last night, and I started watching it a little bit late, about maybe like 10 o'clock ish or so, and it was done. I finished it at 12:30. Watched the whole movie, right through, totally into it. I just love this film. The only thing, and again, I have to say, it was just about as powerful and enthralling as seeing it in the theater. That's how great the quality is of this. It's incredible. The only thing I will say, and there's actually some really good special features on here, which is really great. There's a whole kind of big documentary about them making the movie. From the first kernel of the idea, they go in depth about Robert Eggers. This was a film that he has been wanting to make for a very, very, very long time. They go into that quite a bit. They also, the only thing that I think is a little bit of a letdown with this movie is that this movie, well, this edition, and when I first heard that when it was released, and I saw a little blurb or a little post about it somewhere on social media where they were saying that there's actually two cuts of this film, and there's a theatrical cut, which I saw twice in the theater, and then there's like an extended cut or a director's cut. And that when there's talk of when this film was going to be released on Blu-ray, there was going to be both versions of it. And they really pushed the idea of selling this movie and marketing this Blu-ray release as, oh, this is like the extended cut. This is like, this is going to be a different experience than the theatrical cut. And so I was like really excited because typically if I have the choice, films that I really love, typically what I will do, if I have a choice between a director's cut or the theatrical cut, I find in my experience the director's cut most of the time is better. There's like things are more fleshed out and what have you. But the thing that kind of sucks is there's no difference really with both versions. I watched the extended cut last night, and it's kind of silly because there's 4 minutes, literally 4 minutes added to the extended cut. And I was kind of like, really? Like, why are they marketing this as like the big extended version of this? Like I know they're trying to just sell their product, but I'm like that's kind of ridiculous and kind of stupid because it's literally 4 minutes difference, and I'm like, okay, but that's the only thing that's really stupid, and that was disappointing. And again, I as I was watching it, I was paying extra attention to see if there was going to be extra scenes, longer, scenes with dialogue or what have you, or scenes that were not in the original theatrical cut. And there really isn't. There's a couple of scenes in the film around Willem Dafoe's character and throughout the movie that are, maybe a minute to 50 seconds longer than what we saw in the theater. But it's like there's no difference. So it's just kind of weird that they did that because it actually says on the box, "Oh, this is the extended cut," and it's been marketed. This release that's been the focus is that this is like a different version, and it's kind of a really bad marketing ploy, which I'm kind of disappointed that they did that. Nevertheless, this movie's a masterpiece. So, when I was talking about extended cuts, director's cuts of films that I really, really love and that I do seek out, there's a lot of examples of that. Films like Apocalypse Now, the Redux version, which is like 45 minutes to an hour longer. That film, compared to the theatrical release, more or less the director's cut, the extended edition, it's just breathtaking, and I prefer that to the theatrical release. That's my most prized Blu-ray that I own. Other examples of like true extended cuts or director's cuts would be Ridley Scott's Alien, which is extraordinary. There's about 15 to 20 minutes cut out of that film, of the 79 version, that are really significant and make the movie even more terrifying. And whenever I watch Apocalypse Now, Redux, I always watch the extended version, and then whenever I watch Alien, I always watch the director's cut, the extended version. And then also another one that is just super badass is James Cameron's Aliens. There's a another version of that, a director's cut, which has another 15 minutes, 20 minutes that were left out compared to the theatrical release, and that version is super badass, and I always watch that. So there's quite a few examples of films that are, that we didn't get to see initially, but they through Blu-ray and DVD, there's new versions of those films, and those are the shit. But with Nosferatu, there's no difference, and so it's kind of weird that they did that. But anyway, super excited I bought this. This movie's a masterpiece. It is now top number one for me as far as classic retellings of Dracula. Yeah, highly recommend this film if you have not seen it. I definitely recommend getting this on Blu-ray. The quality is insane. And there's some good special features on here. It's, and I got it pretty cheap. So, yeah, amazing stuff. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.